Okay, good morning, Snowy. Okay, I see people here. Thank you. Just send me a message real quick. If you're here, you can just put it in the comments there. And so I know you're here. And if you don't, all right, sorry about that. I'm not sure why it's cutting in and out like that. But just send me a message. Yeah, just send me a message. Let me know that you're here. Thank you, Shay. Um, and we'll get started here just in a minute. There we go. Now we're back on. Hope I didn't keep doing that over and over again. All right. Thanks for your patience yesterday. Sorry about the technical problems. I hope we don't relive those today, or not nearly as badly. I recorded about 35 minutes of class and realized that it was not working, and you probably weren't able to see very much. So I think it was working for a while. But I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to repeat quite a bit of what I said yesterday since it was missed and or it wasn't recorded. So let me share this here. And again, I'm just going to hope for the best that, and I gave you a link to this, and I'm going to show you about where I am. So here's apology from this MIT website. And I'm not sure how to count this, but maybe we'll count paragraphs. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12, all right. So right here, the paragraph begins, there's another thing right here. So if you want to just follow along with me on the screen, or if you want to follow along, if you have your book, or if you want to follow along by opening the link yourself. So we mentioned this the other day. So young men of richer classes who have not much to do come about me of their own accord. They like to hear the pretenders examined. We've talked about this, and that how this ends up being a real, and he knows this is part of the problem. This is probably maybe one of the origins of the, if not the biggest origin of the idea that he was a corrupter of youth. I mean, to really come up with some charges against Socrates, they really kind of had to dig, I think, a little bit to find those things. But they did, and this is what they came up with, and people just were upset with him. And so, misleading youth, corrupting youth, and then the youth who are hanging around him think, well, I think I can do this, and then they go ahead and they become, they speak the way that he speaks, and he's able to, people have the impression that, wait, Socrates is corrupting our young people, or our young men of our family who were paying a lot of money to be educated by really smart people. Maybe, maybe not. But anyway, as he says here, they examine others themselves, and there are plenty of persons, as they soon enough discover, these young men, who think that they know something, but really know little or nothing. And then those who are examined by them, instead of being angry with themselves, are angry with me. Ending right there. So there's that. Now, what happens here, and I said this yesterday, but I don't think anyone heard it, is that he is able to find, it's really pretty brilliant, and in my opinion, it takes him a little while to kind of get his feet on the ground. Although he starts off, the whole thing is, even his opening statement is just, I think, really brilliant, but he finds a way to really weave together these two charges of corruption of youth and his atheism, or denying, well, really, it's just denying the gods, making up new ones. He finds a way to put those things together. In a way, maybe the best kind of underlying thread would be that both things would be impious if they were true. Corrupting youth and denying the gods would both be impious acts. And so he's kind of gone back to this, what he discussed with on the courthouse steps with this on Euthyphro coming into the courthouse. He's tied these together, and he's able to, in the same words, defend himself against both charges. This is people talk about playing 3-4 level chess. This is something akin to doing that, really. That's a I think even a very skilled attorney today would address these charges as separate things, and present evidence for them or against them as two separate charges. But he's able to weave it together here, where he is in fact addressing both things. Now, he'll mention one or the other, and it seems like he's jumping around a lot. Like, he'll talk about the corruption of youth, and then he'll talk about being a denier of the gods, and he'll go back and forth. But in reality, he is really addressing both things at the same time. So here, the next paragraph, he does something I mentioned in class the other day, these things that we might do that would be probably frowned upon by an attorney, and depending on what the situation was, probably allowing your accusers to speak again, to have a chance to say something in front of the court, especially when you don't know what their answer is going to be. That's, I think, a rule among trial attorneys, is don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to. And Socrates breaks this rule and actually calls down his main accuser, or you might say calls him out. And so he's obviously sitting back into the audience, and in this next paragraph, after the one we just read part of, he let's say that actually right here, not that full paragraph, he mentions it there, then he calls Meletus down. Come hither, Meletus, let me ask a question of you. You think a great deal about the improvement of youth. Yes, I do. Tell the judges then, who there is their improver, as the opposite of a corrupter. Who is their improver? For you must know, as you've taken the pains to discover their corrupter, and are citing and accusing me before them. Speak then, and tell the judges who their improver is. Well, at the end he says, speak up, friend. Tell us who their improver is. I noticed that in the other let me read what it says here. Observe, Meletus, that you are silent and have nothing to say, but is not this rather disgraceful, and a very considerable proof of what I am saying, that you have no interest in the matter? So if you've taken this is Socratic thinking, though. If you are going to take the time to discover what piety is, then at the same time you're going to understand what impiety. Remember, in Euthyphro we asked the question both ways. Tell me again, Euthyphro, what is piety and what is impiety? He asks. So here he's thinking, you've taken all this time to discover me as a corrupter of youth. Who improves this? And then Meletus obviously is silent for a while, doesn't have an answer to that question, and Socrates calls him out on that too. This is disgraceful. Proof of what I'm saying. You have no real interest in this matter. You're just interested in bringing me into court. Well, he gives an answer. The laws. Of course, Socrates wants to know who the person is. By that, my good sir, is not my meaning. I want to know who the person is, who in the first place knows the laws. Well, obvious response. The judges, Socrates, those who are present in court. What do you mean to say, Meletus, that they are able to instruct and improve the youth? Certainly they are. What, all of them? Or some only, not others? Maybe some of them are improving youth, maybe some of them are corrupting youth. All of them? Some of them, not others? All of them. Oh, by the goddess hair, that's good news. There are plenty of improvers then. And what do you say of the audience? Now, that's a really broad swath of people. This would be, anyone who wanted to just come watch the trial, not a person that's going to vote necessarily, not a person who's going to, but like literally the audience, in a courtroom where you have, seats set aside for the prosecution and the defense and the defendant and the plaintiff and all this, but then, and for the judge and the jury, but there's some seating for the audience. This would have been a probably pretty substantial amount of people. So what about them? And this is just addressing, again, a very general group of people that are there. What about the audience? Do they improve them? Well, here's where he knows he has Meletus. Yes, they do. All right. And the senators? Yes, the senators improve them. But perhaps the citizens of the assembly corrupt them. These are the people who are actually going to be voting on whether he's guilty or not. Or do they improve them too? They improve them. Well, he's really painted Meletus into a corner, because he's pretty much mentioned every segment of society possible here, and he's made the case that everyone else is doing the right thing. Everyone else is improving. The youth is a positive influence on the youth, all except for Socrates. Yeah. So the next line, he must be surprised that he took this bait here, but then every Athenian improves and elevates them, all with the exception of myself, and I alone am their corrupter. Is that what you affirm? That is what I stoutly affirm. Well, I love this line here, and I feel like I've mentioned it to you already, but it might be from yesterday. Right here, though, in this next paragraph, happy indeed would be the condition of youth if they had one corrupter only, and all the rest of the world were their improvers. Yeah, that's a timeless statement, right? If the youth of the world only had one corrupting force or corrupting person, and the rest of the world was improving the youth, then we'd be in good shape. That's got to be an embarrassing moment here. But Meletus doesn't give up too easy, and he actually talks to Socrates for some time here. I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit and say, we'll start here. I don't think it's of much use to count the paragraphs since we get past the beginning. So I'm just going to have you search for this real quick. Let's see, this is so weird because I have it all marked up real well in my book and I know where to go. Alright, let's say it's going to be somewhere in this paragraph here. Well, let's just say this paragraph here. Then by the gods, it begins. I'll give you a second if you're scrolling there yourself. Then by the gods, Meletus, of whom we are speaking, tell me in the courts in somewhat plainer terms what you mean. For I do not as yet understand whether you affirm that I teach others to acknowledge some gods, and therefore do believe in gods, and am not an entire atheist. This you do not lay to my charge, but only that they are not the same gods which the city recognizes. The charge is that they are different gods. Or do you mean to say that I am an atheist simply and a teacher of atheism? That's not the charge against Socrates. At least he makes up new gods, right? He denies the gods, as Socrates says, that the city recognizes. He denies them, he makes up new gods. Okay, I guess that's not being an atheist, right? But Um, yeah, he's just kind of confusing, I think, Meletus a little bit here with some. So is the charge exactly that I'm an atheist, or that I only accept some of the gods and not all of them? Or that I deny the gods and make up new ones? Or are you saying I'm just a complete atheist? And maybe out of frustration, maybe, who knows, or maybe confusion, Milita says, I mean the latter, that you are a complete atheist. Well, that's an extraordinary statement, Moses. Why do you say that? Do you mean that I do not believe in the Godhead of the sun or moon, which is the common creed of all men? And then Meletus turns to the assembly and says, I assure you, judges, that he does not believe in them, for he says the sun is stone and the moon earth. Yeah, I don't know of any case where he's ever said that. So, and I've read most of the dialogues, and that'd be a small thing, but I don't remember him ever saying that. But for whatever reason, this is what Meletus thinks that he believes, at least. Let me scroll down here a little bit more. Because he keeps him on the stand here. I wish this was written like our books here, but that he cannot. Yes, that is true. He keeps questioning him, and Meletus keeps taking these questions. Okay, let me scroll back a little bit here. All right. So here Socrates is speaking directly to the audience and not to Meletus. Someone will say, and are you not ashamed, Socrates, of a course of life which is likely to bring you an untimely end? To him I may fairly answer, there you are mistaken. A man who is good for anything ought not to calculate the chance of living or dying. He ought only to consider whether in doing anything he is doing right or wrong, acting the part of a good man or of a bad, or of a bad. Whereas according to your view, the heroes who fell at Troy were not good for much, and the son of Thetis above all, who altogether despised danger in comparison with disgrace, and where his goddess mother said to him in his eagerness to slay Hector, yeah, okay. So again, be who you are, be good. As long as you're living a good life, then you should not really be concerned about the opinions of men, or whether it may even bring an untimely end to your life. He mentions here in the middle of the next paragraph, I just saw it here, but I shall obey God. Now this is what he does. Now let me just mention this here. So he continues to lace his entire defense, whether it's talking about youth or talking about this impiety charge. He continues to lay. Now if I just kind of glance over this one paragraph right here, and I look at it, just at first glance, I'm seeing the word God at least 4 or 5 times in this. Yeah, 2, okay, easily that many times. And that's intentional. I don't think that he was an atheist. I don't have any reason to think he was. But he mentions God. And that's important, right? It's hard to convict somebody of denying the gods when they mention God so often in their thing. And also his idea of what he does as being a response to Apollo, so, and his kind of lifelong mission. All right, let's see here. Gotta find my place here. Yeah. So here at the bottom of that paragraph, I think we were just looking at the one that he says here. Back up to the right spot here, because he gets a little bit belligerent. Now, it seems, although it's his first time in court, but maybe it comes from his experience in discussing things with people on the streets, out on the sidewalks of Athens, he has kind of a sense of where the audience is, or where the judges are, where the assembly is. And maybe he can tell by body language. There are times already that the crowd has murmured at certain things he said and kind of cut him off. and where he's had to ask them to please, not interrupt him. He asked that in the very beginning. But so he has. I think maybe again a good trial attorney would probably have a pretty good, sense, or would try to gauge where the jury and where the judge is on certain things. But he appears to me to start to become a little more belligerent at this point in the trial. Um, let's just start right about here. Oh, my friend, why do you, who are a citizen of the great and mighty and wise city of Athens, care so much about laying up the greatest amount of money and honor and reputation, and so little about wisdom and truth, and the greatest improvement of the soul, which you never regard or heed at all? Are you not ashamed of this? And if the person with whom I am says, yes, but I do care, I do not depart or let him go at once. I interrogate and examine and cross-examine him. And if I think that he has no virtue, but only says that he has, I reproach him with undervaluing the greater and overvaluing the less. And this I should say to everyone whom I meet, young and old, citizen and alien, but especially to the citizens, inasmuch as they are brethren, for this is the command of God, as I would have you know. So now he doesn't claim to be a deity. This is where we would break definitely from the Jesus comparisons, but that he is following the will of God. And I believe that to this day, no good has ever happened in the state, ever. Athens been around for a while. No greater good has ever happened in the state than my service to the God. Wow. So again, aligning himself with God or the gods, aligning himself with what's the will of God, aligning himself with the commands of God, aligning himself with the service to the gods, and not only that, but in a superlative way, no greater good. For I do nothing but go about persuading you all, old and young alike, not to take thought, I'm going to show you where I am here, not to take thought for your persons or your properties, but firstly and chiefly to care about the greatest improvement of the soul. I tell you that virtue is not given by money, but that from virtue come money and every good of man, public as well as private. So you don't become wealthy and then obtain virtue because of your wealth. That in fact, wealth comes from virtue. And maybe I'll just mention this and I'll save it for class, hopefully for Monday. But I don't know what's going to happen Monday. It looks crazy Monday too. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a couple of documentaries, I'm sure you can find them on YouTube, about people who've won the lottery, really won big, like, won tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars overnight. They're working a 9 to 5 job and all of a sudden struggling, and then all of a sudden they've got more money than they need. And there's one good documentary. Well, I've seen one and part of another one. They're both well done, but to see what happens to people, even seemingly good people, when they obtain that kind of money just out of the blue. They bought a lottery ticket, like everyone, no, not everyone, but like a lot of people do, and all of a sudden they have great wealth. And I'll save the rest of that for Monday, or whenever we're back together in class. But Socrates is saying here that you don't get virtue because you have money. Yeah. Virtue first, then money will come from that then. So, okay, I'll just pick up here. But first and chiefly to care about the greatest improvement of the soul. I tell you that virtue is not given by money, but that from virtue come money and every other good of man, public as well as private. Now, see how he's woven this together with the God, and now he's going to jump back into with the youth again. This is my teaching, what he's just laid out here. And if this is the doctrine which corrupts the youth, my influence is ruinous indeed. Yeah. So this is what I say, this is what I do, and If that's what's corrupting the youth, then I'm the corrupter. But if anyone says that this is, he's speaking an untruth. Wherefore, men of Athens, I say to you, do as Anytus bids, or not. Well, Anytus is the one who apparently closed the argument and laid out what he thought should, on the prosecution side, what they thought should happen. He should be, convicted and put to death. Let me back up. Let me just, because there's a lot in that last sentence. This is my teaching. If the doctrine which corrupts the youth, my influence is ruin indeed. But if anyone says, this is not my teaching. So I mentioned these parallels with Christ again, and I mentioned earlier about the way in which these, that with the Gnostic Gospels, the books of the Bible that are not part of the canon of Scripture that we have, one of the big kind of filter points for saying no, this one's not going to be a part of the canon, is that did it show Jesus teaching secret doctrines, secret ways of salvation to certain individuals privately? And one of the, not must say one of the tests, but just thinking along those lines, you'd have to believe that anything that Christ only said, anything of importance, right? I mean, something personal is one thing, but anything of salvific importance or anything that's important on a grand scale, that would be the kind of thing that Christ would say privately and publicly. This idea of the public ministry of Christ is for all of us, but also the private ministry is as well. Socrates is just a human, he's just an open book, and he's just saying, if anyone says this is not my teaching, then he is speaking an untruth. And earlier he talks a lot about public and private. And if you hear me using the same words here in court that I use out on the agora or at the tables of the money changers, don't be surprised. This is just who I am. Okay, so again, Anytus is given asked the court to prosecute him or convict him and for death, and he lays it out. He says, this is what I do every day. Go about persuading, mixing it up with young and old, citizens, non-citizens, whoever wants to talk to me. And if this is what's ruining people, then there you go. And I say, do as Anytus bids, or not as Anytus bids, and either acquit me or not. But whatever you do, know that I shall never alter my ways, not even if I have to die many times. Now that's pretty bold talk for someone who's on trial for their life. Most people who would maybe have that skill of being able to read the jury may take that as the jury's not leaning my way. I could go to death. They might start backing off a little bit. They might not be quite as bold or belligerent, as to use the word I used earlier. But instead, he actually takes it up a notch here and says, not only if basically he's saying, if you acquit me, if you say I'm not guilty, and I walk out of here, then I'm walking out of here, and I'm not going to stop what I've been doing. And even if you bring me back, and even if it was even possible to execute me many times over, and I could come back, I would continue doing the same thing over and over. So, again, this might be the kind of thing that an attorney would say, let's not go so hard on the kill me many times thing. But Socrates, this is just how passionate he is about the what he does. I'm talking and I'm trying to look ahead here. Okay, so let's say here in the next paragraph. Okay, right here. Athenians, I'm not going to argue for my own sake, as you may think, but for yours. Now, again, you're on trial for your life. You think that you would be putting together a case just for yourself. But very benevolently, very good of him, he's saying, I'm not going to defend myself anymore. Let me help you. Excuse me. I'm not going to argue for my own sake, as you may think, but for yours, that you may not sin against the God, or lightly reject his boon by condemning me. For if you kill me, you will not easily find another like me, who, if I may use such a ludicrous figure of speech, am a sort of gadfly, given to the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastening upon you. Let me back up. What's a gadfly? That's the question right here. He equates himself, and he even mentions it, says it's a ludicrous figure of speech, but it's one that we still, well, I not use it, but it's one that's still used today. If you probably look up the word gadfly in a dictionary, maybe the first definition is going to be not any type of insect, but that a gadfly is someone who likes to stir things up, someone who likes to get in the mix and be passionate with their opinion and try to persuade people to believe things their way. You might refer to maybe a journalist as a gadfly. Yeah, this journalist enjoys talking to the people who are involved, that are part of the problem, and get them on board with, or get them to admit, what they done wrong, or maybe to talk about it, or really kind of just mix up things a little bit. Maybe not always for the best reasons, but the way he uses it here is he believes this is for a good reason. But in reality, I mean, just what it is, a gadfly is a horsefly. A horsefly, yeah. So I don't know if you've ever been bitten by a horsefly before. Brendan said he deals with horses. Maybe you've just been bitten by a horsefly, not even around horses anywhere. But it hurts, though. I mean, it'll get your attention. But he compares himself and says he's sort of like a gadfly, and the state, the city of Athens, is like a great and noble steed, a huge horse, right? So let me back up here. I'm sort of a gadfly. I'm not a god, but next line, given to the state by the god, like God sent me. And the state is like a great and noble steed, who is tardy in his motions owing to his very size. Big horse, doesn't move very fast, and requires to be stirred into life. I am that gadfly which God has given to the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastening upon you, arousing and persuading and reproaching you. And as you will not easily find another like me, I would advise you to spare me. I dare say that you may feel irritated at being suddenly awakened when you are caught napping. Yeah, so this is what I do, and you're not going to find another guy like me, so don't kill me. Don't kill me. But he just lays out here. But this term comes from this quote. A gadfly was strictly a horsefly up until this point. And after Socrates uses it and Plato writes it down, people now when they say the word gadfly, they mean someone who likes to kind of, like I said, mix it up with people. He even says here, fastening upon you. Yeah. So if you have a horse, and as much as you want that horse to move forward, you can pull on it. I wouldn't advise it, but you can also, from behind, but you can push on it. Don't do that. But if a horse of any size wants to just stay where it is, it'll really lock up, and it's going to be hard to move that horse. Now, so we take some, strong young guy, and he's going to try to move a horse by brute force. It's not going to happen. But a little horsefly, maybe an inch long. They're pretty big, actually. Let's say it's an inch long. That'd be a smaller one. This little, doesn't weigh anything. Fastens itself upon the buttocks of a horse, bites it, and what happens? That horse moves, gets its attention. And that's how Socrates sees himself. The state's going to move slowly, but I'm going to push it along a little bit, and I'm the gadfly. Okay. So, okay. Someone look ahead here. Sorry, I'm just going to find my That's okay. Let's see. We'll see here that what happens is the jury finds they break here, and they find Socrates guilty, and in fact that he's going to. It's all usually I think with us in our court system, um, uh, guilt or innocence is proclaimed, and then at a later date or a later hearing of some sort, there's the what do you call it the sentencing phase, where the yeah, what's going to happen to you? How many years in prison, death sentence, whatever it's going to be. And so, but here they did it all in one thing, and that happens sometimes here too, but usually not on a death sentence case. Um, and the and I'll have to get you the number. It's not a huge. I mean, the majority voted for his condemnation, but it's not it's a close vote though. It's a close vote, and so he um, made a good case, but there was just a lot of other things working against him, and a lot of maybe prejudices working against him. So I think I'm going to, well, let's just look at, well, no, no, no. I'll pick this up on Monday. Hopefully we'll be back together again. This part here, someone will say, yes, Socrates. If you'll read this to the end, though, then that'd be a good, it's not very long. I mean, there's not very much more you can see here. Um, just read it in your book, or you can read here. Not much more. It's a few more paragraphs. Um, and yeah, well, once he's condemned, then he's really free to say whatever he wants to. And so, if he was belligerent before, he gets a little bit more so here in the this last bit here. Okay, I think I'm gonna. It's 8:56. Hopefully the video has held. Yes, looks like it has. And I will, thank you. Um, I will stop there, and we will, hopefully, like I said, we'll pick up on Monday in person. If not Monday in person, then Monday back here. But read Apology to the end, um, and then I'll talk about a little bit about the next one. We're only going to read the first three that we've read. Euthyphro, we'll finish Apology on Monday, and we'll start on. I'll start talking about the next one, which is the shortest one, Crito, which is just a brief